The Miami Hurricanes are going to need to impose their will at the line of scrimmage yet again. And how about this? The average weight of Miami's offensive line, 331 pounds. The average weight of Indiana's defensive line, 278 pounds.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I can't believe we're a week away. Happy Monday if there is such a thing. And yes, there is. I mean, next Monday we'll be even happier. I know Monday morning will be. Hopefully next Monday night we'll be happy if Miami can get it done. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube. We're part of the #1 Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. Visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every game day. So make sure you check that next Monday. On this loaded episode, we'll talk about transfer portal quarterbacks, right? Because the world waits on Sam Leavitt. And, hey, maybe Ty Simpson with the NFL draft. Not so fast, my friends. We'll talk about the quarterback that Miami is about to face. South Florida's own Fernando Mendoza. He's got a Heisman Trophy. Now he's going for a national championship in his hometown. Miami's going to try to stop him. We'll talk about Miami's matchups with the Hoosiers. Nobody better to talk to on this Monday than our boy Blue, Larry Blustein, WQAM 104.3 in Miami, Prep Red Zone, Florida, the Sixth Ring Cane podcast. Blue, thank you so much for being here. And Larry, I know Indiana's defense has been awesome. I'm hoping, though, that Miami's offensive line can push around that smaller defensive line the way Miami's done all season long.
Yeah, well, you know what, Alex, this is, you get to this level, and there's a reason why both programs are where they're at. And, you look at, Miami's climb, especially having to go on the road to play an SEC team at Texas A&M, and then lining up against the defending national champions, and then playing another SEC team that, let me keep you in mind, that was 13-1 in the game as well. So, as far as being battle tested, you take each opponent, one at a time. You match up with them, differently every week. But at this point, you look at Miami's being so athletic, and I think they match up with anybody that they play. And, this is, and we all know this is not going to be easy. This is going to be this is a program in Indiana that has pretty much feasted on the portal, but in a way not to get young kids, but they've gotten veterans. They got more 5th and 6th year guys. They keep making light of Carson Beck. Carson Beck was injured. He's at a premier program. So obvious if he had to sit, there was a reason why he had to sit. But you have a lot of guys at Indiana that, like D'Angelo Pons, who, came from Chaminade Madonna, but he also played at James Madison. And he was, you have a ton of kids that on Indiana's team that have been around. And a lot of these kids on Miami, even in a Bain and Messidor may be, an exception because he was injured too and played at West Virginia. But you have a lot of younger kids on Miami, but guys that are very athletic, very hungry. And I think that, going into this game, you look at what happened in the Oregon game, with Indiana, and they jumped on them early and they never really recovered. I just think that this game coming up, you're going to have two teams that are going to be at such a high level. And, it's a national title game. It's everything, and then as I say, Indiana, and it's tough for me as an OG. I remember Indiana being 3-80, it's tough for me to accept that they're in this role, but for a lot of fans who are younger, they look at Miami in the same way because Miami over the last 23, 24 years hasn't been a marquee level program. So yeah, it's a really interesting game. as far as two teams that if you looked at the beginning of the year and you polled 100 people, maybe even 1,000 people, neither of them would have picked these two teams to be here on January 19th.
Yeah, and the role that Indiana is in, they're 7.5-point favorites on FanDuel, 8.5-point favorites against Miami in some places. And just so we know what Miami is up against defensively, Indiana ranks second in total defense in the country. They give up just 252.6 yards per game. They're second in rushing defense. They give up just 73.7 yards per game. Now, Miami is going to try to continue to have the rushing success that they've had so far in the postseason. Indiana is 18th blue in passing defense. They give up 179 yards per game. They're also tied Indiana for 6th in sacks this season. They get 3 sacks per game. Miami is slightly better in sacks than Indiana. Miami is 4th in sacks at 3.13 per game. But in terms of blue, like I gave the stat for Indiana's defensive line is small. They've had a lot of success despite their biggest guy on the D-line being 301 pounds and averaging 278. Miami's offensive line has 50 pounds on them per man. But how do you feel about this matchup, Blue? Is Miami going to be able to push them around and create that push up front?
Alex, this reminds me a lot of 1983, and all we heard is Nebraska's coming in. They're the best team in the history of football. There's just no way, I don't care if Miami's at home in the Orange Bowl or not, that they're going to be able to stay with them. It's just, it's a David Goliath situation. Nebraska was a really senior-oriented team with Irving Fryer and Gill and all these huge guys up front. And and no matter who you talk to, what analyst has seen both teams, there's just no way. Miami had to do whatever they could. They lost their opening game to Florida. It wasn't really pretty. And you know what? I wrote something the other day where this is 1983 all over again.
Yep.
There's no way Miami belongs in this game. There's no way that that they're going to match up with a team that has just done everything and impressed and coming off a huge 40-something point semifinal win. And you know what? You take those things, especially when it comes to athleticism and coaching that Miami has. The home field means nothing. What's the difference? What makes a difference is Miami has, shown over the last 3 weeks that they belong where they're at. And they're not a flash in the pan, and they beat some really good football teams. Remember, Ohio State and Indiana clashed pretty. It was only it was a pretty close game. You look at an A&M team that I can't reiterate enough, that Miami went on the road and played in front of 103,000 hostile fans. And then a Mississippi team, let's face it, they could have been undefeated as well. And they were an SEC team loaded with talent. There's no way they're going to stop Trinidad Chambliss. There's no way they're going to be able to score against that vaunted quick SEC defense. So, you know what? I let the playing happen on the 19th. I'm not going to, say what should happen or what shouldn't happen. I just know that Miami's answered every single bell so far, and I don't think anything's going to be expected less, a week from today.
Well, before we talk about Miami's possible next quarterback, I want to talk about the quarterback matchup when we come back for this game. Carson Beck, who just had a career-defining final drive and a performance, and what a year Carson is having at Miami, and what a redemption story. And then Fernando Mendoza, who won a Heisman on the other side, and he's a South Florida kid coming back home. Storylines are through the roof on this one. Larry Blustein is with us, and we're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. And folks, you can get action on this game at FanDuel. College football playoff, we got one game left, and our Miami Hurricanes are taking on the Indiana Hoosiers, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action on game day. Because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. You get to use the profit boost on the bets you already feel good about. You can ride with the favorite if you like Indiana, or you can take a shot on the underdog if you feel an upset coming for Miami, or you can build a parlay around the players and the moments you think decide the game, like Mark Fletcher, Malachi Toney, Keontae Scott, Carson Beck. Then you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long, so visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff boosts every game day. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. And for the Everydayers, you want to join the Everydayer Club. When you lock into the all-access tier on the Everydayer Club, you get exclusive episodes called the Canes Colada, where I'm sipping my coffee in the morning talking shop. You get an exclusive Locked On Canes newsletter, one-on-one text message access with me, and so much more. You can click the link in the show notes below, or you can go to lockedoncanes.supercast.com and become an all-access member of the Everydayer Club today. We're here with our boy Blue, Larry Blustein. So, Blue, before we talk about Mendoza, who you covered when he was playing in South Florida, of course, let's talk about Carson Beck, Blue, because what he did in that game against Ole Miss, specifically that final drive, where Miami goes 15 plays, 75 yards. They convert 4 third downs on that game-winning drive, and Beck runs in for the score, which a lot of us didn't have on our bingo cards. I thought that was a career-defining drive for him, and how do you feel now about the Carson Beck era at Miami after all the scrutiny he endured earlier in the year?
Well, I watched every single game this year, and 8 of them at home and up close and personal. And I've never wavered. I know what type of quarterback he is. He's cerebral. He's mature. He's been through all this before. He's played in high-level games. He's, had to take over games, and he's had to manage games. And I think this is an important thing to remember about him, is he probably could play in any type of offense you need him to, because he's one of these guys that doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. He doesn't get excited, doesn't panic. He always knows that no matter what, that he's going to be in control, and he has more experience than anybody on that field. So he's seen more, no cut to any of the teams that Miami's played, but he played in the SEC, over the last couple of years. And I think that he's had his share of games where he's had 250, 300 games, and then he's had 170-yard games. And to him, stats are not important. Productivity is. And I think that's the difference. He doesn't care if he throws for 4 touchdowns. Obviously the 4 interceptions against Louisville bothered him because, in the post game, he had said, that's not me. And he's shown this year. I mean, I don't care who it is. I mean, you look at an NFL game and you look at, somebody, who's one of the best quarterbacks, like a Matthew Stafford. He's going to make mistakes, and that's just the way it is. But somebody like him, that he won't continue to make mistakes. He's going to adjust. He's going to utilize. He sees that Miami can run the ball. And listen, I know Indiana's really, really good, but I don't see them consistently stopping Miami's running game. Miami's got the size, as you said, up front. They've got, a couple of running backs, and, they haven't really unleashed Gerard Pringle because they just figured, in a situation like this, when the stakes are so high, you want to kind of ride the ponies who got you there, and guys who have been in this situation before. And I think, you take a look at Marty Brown, and he's such a perfect, guy to have along with Fletcher, because he's been there, done that. He's played at high-level games. He's come from a national champion. I don't care if it is North Dakota State, because North Dakota State will lay the wood against anybody. So, I just think that somebody like, you take a look at a Carson Beck, and I think Alex said that's a guy who understands, what every situation is, and he's comfortable with it, and he's never, like I said, he's never going to panic. You always go, well, thank goodness we got him out there. And I think that's how everybody on that team feels.
Yeah, and then, on the other side, you have Fernando Mendoza, it's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL. He just won himself a Heisman Trophy. Wasn't all that heralded coming out of high school. I know Mario Cristobal wasn't at Miami yet. It's ironic because Cristobal, he was a classmate of Mendoza's father at Miami Columbus. So there's a family connection, but Mario was not at Miami yet when Mendoza was coming out of Miami Columbus, and he didn't really get recruited by Manny Diaz's staff, but he's someone who I guess he was going to go to Yale, and then he went to play at Cal, and now he's at Indiana doing his thing, having an incredible year. Like I'm sure you covered Mendoza at Columbus back in the day, Blue. Like, did you imagine he could get where he's gotten now, and what's changed about him as a quarterback?
Well, I covered him at Berlin Jesuit and Columbus. Both of them. He and his brother both went to both schools, and then he made the move over to Columbus. And his junior year, he was a backup quarterback, and he held on extra points. When they beat a Pop Cup in Daytona Beach, he was a junior on that team. And then the following year, he got his opportunity to play. And then, I never thought that. I thought when we last left him and, said our goodbyes, he was going to Yale, brainiac, smart kid, comes from a really, really well in the mind family, father and mother, both brilliant, his brother too, just very intelligent. I get a call from our friend Joe Rose, and he goes, have you ever heard of a guy named Fernando Mendoza? And I said, oh, yeah. I think he went to like Yale or something. He goes, no, he's at Cal. Yeah. And Joe went to Cal, and I said, oh, he's at Cal? And I was kind of surprised. I never really thought he was a power 4 type of kid, or, at the time, I guess they were considering a power 5, but I just, it kind of surprised me. And, and then all of a sudden you watch Cal, their starter got hurt. He took over and did pretty well. And then when they played Miami last year out and on the coast, he did pretty good. I think he threw for over 300 yards. He ran the ball. He kept Cal in the game against Miami. And that's when I kind of had an inkling. I said, oh, okay. He's pretty good. And then everybody, Miami obviously losing Cam Ward, and everybody was talking, well, why don't we give him Fernando Mendoza? And, but people have to understand, even though guys are productive, they have to fit the offense. Yeah. He's not a Miami. He's not what Miami looked at. You get a guy like Cam Ward, and then you get a guy completely opposite, like a Beck, who's not a runner, who's not a spread option type of guy, but a guy who's more of a pro type of quarterback. So in retrospect, maybe, Mendoza could have fit, but at the time Miami wasn't looking in that direction. And then obviously Mendoza's brother, who originally committed to James Madison, and then when their head coach obviously took the Indiana job, he went there, and he felt it was a good landing spot. His brother told him, listen, is a great coach. You have a really good philosophy here. It's a good opportunity because, heck, he had already graduated from Cal. So it wasn't like he was looking, for an education. He already had it. And, he's worked out really well for them. Surprised? Yeah, I'm surprised because I watched him. I thought he was pretty good. I didn't think he was really, that type of level. But listen, you mature, things fall in your place. You go to a situation where it's more or less suited for you, and then you stand out. And, you look at Brock Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant, was the last pick in the NFL draft. Did anybody on that day say, well, Brock Purdy's going to be a guy that's going to lead San Francisco? So things kind of work out. When things when you kind of make things fit, things work out. Physically 6'5", throws the ball really well. And, this is it, he's always been kind of nerdy, but that's in a good way. It's not you're nerdy because he's a very, very intelligent guy. He understands things. He analyzes more things than more people his age would. And I think he's been just such a breath of fresh air for them. A great athlete, somebody who, is not going to kill you with his legs, but he's smart enough to know, just like Carson Beck the other day, Carson saw the opening, he took it and ran it in from 4, 5, 6 yards out. And that's how it is. You get a guy like a Mendoza, and he's smart enough to adjust, and he's done so. And he fits so well in the situation that Indiana has, and can't say enough. Congratulations to him on everything he's done, and it's going to be a great opportunity for him to come back home to face a team that I'm sure that I heard him the other day. He lives half a mile from the University of Miami campus, so I'm sure when he comes home, and goes to visit his parents, he'll hear Miami practicing. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's a great point. Hopefully he doesn't like fly a drone over the field or anything.
I think he's seen everything he needs to see.
Yeah, that's fair. And how do you in terms of Miami's defense matching up, Blue? We'll find out more throughout the week about the health of the defensive backfield. I mean, unfortunately, Xavier Lucas is going to be suspended for the first half, which that was such BS
Not
on
fair.
that targeting
Not
call.
fair,
Ridiculous. OJ Frederic got banged up, I think, and hope he's going to be okay for this game. Of course, Indiana has some really good receivers in Surratt and Cooper, and Mendoza's throwing the ball at a high level. Now,
and Becker too, the young kid Becker, who's won him some games. So but you know what? Everything I think is going to be predicated up front seven. I think probably you look at some of the players that Miami's had, and obviously the front. The front four guys always get the publicity, but I think everybody's kind of overlooked the job that Mohamed Toure's done this year. He's a leading tackler on the team. And I'll tell you what, this is a kid that is really, and this is all on your defensive coordinator, Heatherman. He's the one that said, hey, listen, I coached the guy at Rutgers. I think the kid's going to be special if he's healthy. And I'll tell you what, he's hit right on him. And I think what happens on the front seven is going to kind of predicate a lot. And I think Miami's front seven is going to be really active, especially when you have a coordinator that understands every offense. And certainly he's seen offenses a lot like Indiana before. And he's going to remember he was in the Big Ten last year. So he understands, everything that needs to be done. And I think everything's going to be, and like you said, the defensive secondary means a lot, but everything's dictated up front. And I think if you look at what Miami's done with their front seven, Alex, I think that's going to be where everything's going to be dictated in this game.
Coming up next, we're awaiting a verdict on who Miami's quarterback is going to be for next year. Miami just hosted over the weekend the number one transfer portal quarterback, but he left without committing. So what's the latest on Sam Leavitt? And is there still an opening to get Ty Simpson out of the NFL draft? Miami's done that before. Carson Beck, Cam Ward. Simpson is receiving phone calls and bids from several schools, and I got to think Miami's one of those. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, the new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and feels. That's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or upgrading your work from home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for your style and budget. Folks, I love that I could find pieces that match my style and my family's style without spending a fortune. Shopping is easy, delivery is smooth, and everything arrives exactly as expected. It honestly made getting back into a routine this new year feel a lot more manageable. So get organized, refreshed, and back on track this new year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I will have a new episode today. We'll talk about Miami's path to potential victory against a really good Indiana Hoosiers team. But we're talking now with our boy Blue, Larry Blustein, 104.3 WQAM. I'm actually going to be on Blue's radio show tonight. We'll talk more about that in a minute. All right, so Blue, I know that at times there's seemingly been some optimism for Miami with Arizona State transfer quarterback Sam Leavitt. I know there's also been some optimism out of LSU, and Lane Kiffin has been pushing really hard to try to get that one done. Leavitt visited LSU last week. He left Baton Rouge without a decision. He visited Tennessee. He left Knoxville without a decision. He finished his Miami visit on Sunday without a final decision. I mean, how would you feel, Blue, about Sam Leavitt, who, by the way, he's recovering from injury, so he would probably miss spring ball. But how would you feel about Leavitt as Miami's potential next starting quarterback?
Deja vu, right?
Yeah.
Didn't we have one like that last year? Well,
Sure
you know
did,
what?
and it worked out last year.
Yeah,
And
I
this
was going
year.
to say, if we can guarantee the success, that Carson Beck has had, you could sit out all you want, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Sam Leavitt, if you go back and watch, he makes all the throws.
Yeah.
He runs if he has to. Very intelligent guy. Remember, he was kind of instrumental in helping to turn that program around. With Cam Scatabo and some of those other guys that they had at Arizona State. Obviously, he'd be great. You mentioned, somebody like a Ty Simpson. And what he brings to the table as well. And, Miami's going to come out of this smelling pretty good. They've got so much to offer. Oh, by the way, we've got major tight ends. Oh, and we got the best freshman in the country coming back. We got our running game intact. We got some offensive linemen that we're developing. We're going to bring in some other ones. We got the number one player in the country who's probably going to fit in somewhere along the line. We have Gerard Pringle. We have a lot of guys to throw.
Fletcher's coming back.
Yeah, well, you got your whole backfield. Marty Brown will probably be back in there.
Yeah.
He's got another year if he'd like as well. And then all of a sudden you throw in the fact that we have two of the most productive wide receivers in this freshman class coming in with Milan Paris, who's a beast that everybody wanted, and a kid Samarian Wingo, who I've had an opportunity to watch for the last 3-4 years. You have so much to sell. The fact that you have a coordinator who's in place that's very, very open to doing a lot of different things. He works extremely well with the quarterback. You take a look at what he did with Cam Ward last year. He kind of let Cam do his own thing. And this year he understood with Beck's experience at a high level that they played off of each other. And I think that's what Sam or Ty or anybody comes in here are going to understand, that when they come in here, they're going to have a coordinator that's going to work with them and not tell them, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that. They're going to help them play into their strengths. And I think that, you've seen that over the last couple of years. So, yeah, there's so much for Miami to sell. The fact that they have a lot of kids coming back. They have easily one of their best recruiting freshman class probably in history. If you look at all the, their top 5 to 10 type of program, from recruiting standpoint, but the need that they're bringing in with all the offensive linemen, with the, Clinton Portis' young man, son, who's going to be a beast, with the defensive secondary that they recruited, with the receivers that they've recruited. And, Miami plays the portal game as well as anybody. So, is there another Jacoby Thomas on the horizon? Is there another, one of the many receivers that they brought in? There's so much to sell. And I think that Miami will end up, no matter who they get, they'll end up with a guy that's going to be able to lead this team as a top tier team again. They're number 1 or 2 right now in the country, and certainly with Mario Cristobal and this staff, they intend to stay there.
Yeah, and you got to love the way this program is trending, that's for sure. They're a week away from playing for a national title. I want to thank Larry Blustein. And Blue, you got your radio show going tonight, most informative show in the country on 104.3 FM WQAM in Miami. And I'll be on with you.
Yes, you will. And you're the key guy.
What else will people hear outside of little old me?
Yeah, you're the marquee guy. You come right there at 6:05, top of the hour. Then we're going to have the new head coach at Miami Norland, former Louisville standout, Bam Brown, who's their new head coach, played at Norland. Good guy. He's up at the college coaching convention right now, so trying to sell some of his younger players as well. So we'll talk to him a little bit, and then we'll talk about our prep red zone camp, which we have on Saturday or Sunday, the day before. I'll be a busy bee driving back and forth like you. Yeah. Those the route pretty well. Sure do. We're going to be up there on Sunday at Winter Park High School. So we'll talk a little bit about that event. So there's a lot going on. And, we'll have a lot of appearances this week. Tonight also on our 6 Ring podcast, the Canes podcast, we'll get after it. Finally, Vish, our friend Vish, who picked Miami last year to be in the national championship game, has certainly picked them this year. And
he wasn't wrong. He was just early.
Yeah. So between 8:30 and 9:30, you'll hear a lot of University of Miami talk. I could guarantee you that. And, between he and DJ and certainly Jazz Santana, they are huge Hurricane fans, and they've ridden. Me and DJ this year, we picked Miami to be 9-3, during the regular season. So we were one game off. Glad we are. I never picked 16 games. So,
That's right.
You'll be surprised at our predictions tonight. Last week, I came really close in that game. I picked Miami to win by 5. So I was pretty close. The week before, I picked Miami to win by 6 against Ohio State. So I've been right there. So listen in, you'll hear some knowledge somewhere along the line.
I love it. Well, Larry Blustein does an awesome job. Make sure you follow him on X at Prep Red Zone FL. Our boy Blue, thank you so much. Thank you so much to the Everydayers. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe. Make sure you check out the Everydayer Club, lockedoncanes.supercast.com. And we'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the #1 Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.